From Atari down to ZX Spectrum, he must have played them all. Our guest, John Gardiner.
Yeah, I reckon I have. ZX Spectrum. One of the first game I programmed was on the Spectrum, the football game.
Nice.
And believe it or not, it used less memory than a graphic picture will do now, and that was the whole game.
Wow.
The 48K Spectrum.
Awesome. You are an accountant by profession. Your sportsreplays.net website dates to 2004. So you are a tremendous repository of gaming history. I'm really just curious about your gaming life. How did you get into board games and then computer games? And, what kind of design work have you done?
I actually started sports games when I was about 17, and I'll give my age away with this, but it was about 1969, and that was, believe it or not, simple D6, a number of them, and I ran not quite like Legatka, but I ran leagues for year after year using dice and whatever. And then I realized there were other crazy people out there doing the same. And then I sort of moved out and looked at what games were around. In the UK, it was largely Lamborn games. He covered a lot of sports, and they were all of my type of interest. Just dice rolling and a few charts and whatever. And that was in the 70s. And I can't put a date exactly on it, but somewhere in the 80s was when the Spectrum came along, and I got interested in that.
Your website runs the gamut. You list a tremendous array of games, Roberto's games, Philip Gibson's. You list them by golf, baseball replays, soccer, football, cricket, U.S. football, hockey, basketball, boxing, motorsports, tennis, other sports, sports links, Field of Dream. I mean, it's just an amazing trove of information.
It's built up over all those years, Jeff.
What is your collection? Must be tremendous.
Yeah, but having said that, not too many of them are actually board games. Many of them are just charts, dice, or computer. So I can still live in the house with them.
Yeah.
In recent years, I've spread into other interests. One of them's on that page there, which is role-playing games.
Mm-hmm.
And I've toyed around with a number of games to try and create role-playing so that you actually create a player and then take him through the game. I've never quite managed it yet, but maybe one day.
Speaking of your breadth of knowledge, and you're an accountant, you're a numbers person, you've got several affiliations with various folks who deal in the probabilities and the numbers. I'm just wondering what kind of games in your experience have really captured that feel of their given sport.
Well, I could go down the list actually, but golf, probably the best one I think for golf is the computer one, and that's Action PC Golf. I know that a lot would disagree with me, but it's a game that you can play, or you can let the computer play, so you don't have to trawl through hours and hours and hours. That's the one problem with golf. It can take as long as the real thing.
Sure.
Robert Giovini's games, he covers every sport you can think of. They're all quick play. They're lovely little games, and I've enjoyed playing a number of them. I've got sports card games. There's one I've got which is golf, believe it or not. I've got some which are on my site to sell. It's interesting because you just try and get the cards that will get the ball nearest to the hole. Simple idea. Baseball. I'm going to upset most of the people in America with this one. I like replay sport, baseball, the computer version, because it uses like a board, but it's on the computer screen, so you can see what's happening. Gives good results. But I go back many years before that with Diamond Mind. It's still around, but I was upset at the time when that one went. Went is the wrong expression. When it diminished and it was sold on by Tom Tippett. If that had developed, it could probably now still be the number one.
Interesting.
Baseball, as I say, replay sports games, PC version. I mean, many like the board version, but again, it's time. I don't have time to sit down for hours and hours and hours to play games. As an accountant, you've got deadlines.
For sure. For sure. Speaking of your profession, you are a numbers guy, as we will shorthand here. And I'm just kind of curious. I mean, we talk so much about probabilities and distribution. We talk about sample sizes. We talk about what is meaningful. What to you is constitutes an accurate game in terms of the final stats? Do you keep a lot of stats? Do you have some touch points for each game that show you that it's the real deal?
I'm not that much of a geek about them, no. as long as the end result of the season has the teams roughly in the right order, it doesn't matter if the players are not precise, but as long as the teams and the overall results look about right, that's what sports games are about, to give you the fun of believing. If it was totally every result was going to be exactly as the original, no point doing it. But there's an awful lot of people who will tell you that their game is best. On my site, you will have read that everybody will tell you their game is better. But as long as it's being enjoyed, it doesn't matter.
What are the games that you just listed some of your favorites? Are these the games, or are there any others that you return to? They're the ones that have just stuck with you time and time again. Any others?
Well, then I come to the British one. Soccer, the beautiful game from Lambourne Games. It's very, very straightforward, very quick and very realistic. Cricket, too. There's, again, Lambourne Games cricket, or alternatively, Minden Games card cricket. Both of those are very representative of the sport, and you can see the game develop. Cricket isn't a game that you can actually do a quick play version of. People have tried. They're not bad, but they're not really true. It's got to have all the nuances of the actual game. American football, looking at my list up there, second and 10 is my option. Richard Hanna, programmer, excellent programmer, and it's a very realistic game. You can play quickly, and the stats are all there that you could possibly want. Back in 81, I think it was, I was a Washington Redskins fan. More recent times, I've gone over to New England. So I travelled to Boston back at the end of the 90s, and became a Boston Red Sox fan at that time as well.
Awesome.
Very pleased to see that I was a Red Sox fan before they won the World Series. So I saw it happen. Many Americans never have.
That's true. That's true. That's great.
Hockey, yeah, it's on my list up there, and there's some links to it. But hockey's not my game.
It is a very particular kind of thing, for sure.
It is. If you want a punch up, why not have a punch up? Why play hockey?
Speaking of boxing games.
That's being very unkind to it, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, what have we got to? Hockey, basketball. Basketball's not really my game. Boxing, yeah, there's been some interesting boxing games. Motorsports, yeah. Probably if I really was pushed to answer that one. Again, a Lambourne Games on Grand Prix racing. I'm not greatly into the NASCAR style racing. The Formula One, it has an element of wear and tear and spills and whatever. In fact, probably one of the best ones apart from Lambourne Games that I would comment on is Play.com's game on motor racing, American racing. Because the method he's used there is very good. You don't have to move everything, you just move some. Otherwise, again, it can take as long as the real thing.
For sure.
And then you've got tennis. And now tennis, I've got the game up there that I sell, as you know, as International Grand Slam Tennis. That was Lambourne Games originally. I played it a lot, and I persuaded Terry that there was one or two things missing, which I called purple patch, where one player went up and the other one went down. It became part of the game. Eventually, I took the game over from Terry and I've done more adjustments to it, but it plays very realistically, because when you watch a Grand Slam tennis game, one player goes, the other one catches. You know, it's not just simple results. It's a mental game. I'm very pleased with my Grand Slam version of Grand Slam tennis, and I'm being honest with you, it's the best seller of all of them. And tennis isn't necessarily the most popular game, but it's the best-selling game. Replay World of International Athletics. I sell a lot of them as well, because people like to replay athletics meetings. That with all the latest times, you can play one race, you can play an event or whatever. But it's very effective, and it gave me the idea that we were lacking a proper swimming game. So the Replay World of International Swimming came out of the Replay World of Athletics.
Wow.
And out of that came triathlon, which was an interest of mine, because it combined elements of both. Oh, and then there's the Replay World of ice skating too, because the Russian girl, Lipneskaya, way back, just sort of blew me away. And I thought, there's got to be a game out there that works for this. So I created one.
How do you assess the mechanics? I mean, how do you decide what points, maybe in something that isn't necessarily so statistically oriented, how do you decide what points of that game, what functions or mechanics to render in board or PC format?
Swimming and athletics and triathlon are very simple because the end result times are the relevant measurement. The ice skating, that was interesting because it's all about various numbers for various factors of the dancing and whatever. And I played around on Excel for months, and eventually I got a game that actually gave you results that were believable for the level of each of the participants. So there's your answer. It's not to the decimal point, but it's believable. Comes back to my other point. Sports games have to be fun. They have to be believable. Some can get far too worried if the decimal point is in the wrong place or whatever. That's no longer fun.
Sure.
And then Ryder Cup Replay, the golf game. Lambourne have got that game. It's a very good game, but it was just on pure blank sheets of card and they drew out the course. I took it over and created photorealistic overhead views of the holes and where the ball lands. Probably too much though, because everybody that's bought it loves it and says it's going to be some more. Well, the problem is that every single one of those takes about 3 weeks solid, because you're doing each hole with the landing, the bunkers, everything else, and then statistically for the golfers. So it's a hell of a lot of work.
Yep. So
you want that to sell big. And it can't, how do I put this? Because of the work involved, it can't be cheap. I think a lot of people would like it cheaper, but if they're going to get photorealistic overheads of the holes, they've got to pay for it. Have to draw a line on how many I was going to do. I'm hoping that I will get back onto it. I've passed retirement age. I'm still working. And I have no idea when the time will come.
That's it. That's the gamer's dilemma for all time. You mentioned Lambourne games. Are there any other particular? One of my only UK games is this the from 1969 Top Team by Sir Matt Busby, or endorsed by him. It's kind of a soccer franchise building Monopoly-esque kind of a game. Yeah. I just wonder what other classic British games we should check out.
Well, if you want horse racing, there's a game it's a board game called Totopoly. It's a Waddington's game, and that's pretty good. It's not sports replay, but it's sports. I suppose if I think about it, there aren't too many sports games in the UK. There's even less sports game companies. I mean, in America, you've got a lot.
Sure.
But it seems to be something that doesn't take off that well in the UK. I mean, Lambourne's done well. A company called How's That Games that sell Lambourne stuff, they've done well. Not too many have. Most have gone by the by.
I imagine that makes playing head-to-head or face-to-face rather difficult, even more difficult.
Exactly. As many of these weren't internet linked anyway. So you've got to be around a table. Having said that, a lot of the ones that I've designed, really they're designed for solitaire. So you can just bring them out, play what you want. Change your rules if you want to. It doesn't matter. It's your game. The basics are there.
Do you do any wargaming as well? And do you ever try to cross-pollinate a rule or two here or there? This rule works great. It might work here.
Simple answer is no. I don't try that.
Okay.
Sports games, in my mind, have got a very definitive way of designing and trying to recreate the sport. War games do a great task in what they're doing. I have played many, particularly on the computer, again, to get rid of all the pieces that fall on the floor. No, I don't cross-pollinate that. Sports games are sports games. And I would say that cross-pollinating between two sports games is possible, yes. Well, athletics, swimming and triathlon, they've got the mechanics in all of them, similar mechanics, just changed for the style of game. Triathlon was an interesting one because, of course, you've got swimming and running and cycling and the transition. So each needed its own bits of timing segments and everything else. But yeah, it works.
I'm on your page right now. Beach volleyball as well.
Yes, it sold a few copies, but that was using the mechanics of the tennis game. Volleyball and tennis, similarities, sort of. And again, that was in the 2012 World Olympics. Got me off on that one. And it works. It's different.
Sure. Are there any other kind of out there sports that you think? I think we talked a little bit about it, but any other sports that you, or even any non-sport endeavor that you think, wow, that'd be an interesting topic these days? Of course, the Euro games and other cards, fast action card games, card-based games are tackling every possible, planting, gardening. I mean, you name it. Any other topics you would like to try to render?
Card-based games have got their own niche, but they're not my thing. Jeff, if I had time, I would like to persevere more with the games I've already done and possibly variants of them. Certainly the Ryder Cup replay. I haven't brought out last year a tennis rating set, but I have done every other year. I do intend to bring them out again. But with the pandemic, to me, it completely messed up the ratings because people can't meet each other. They can't play on all the surfaces. No disrespect to her, but there was one woman at the top of the women's ratings for over a year and she didn't play a game. That doesn't really ring true. No, I think probably just about covered on my site the ones I would want to. It's got to be something you've got a good interest in. Otherwise, it'll never come out right.
Do you get what kind of user feedback do you get? Have you ever incorporated some feedback from folks who've played something and found a mechanic that maybe could be refined, or you left it alone?
I've had lots of feedback from people that have bought them. I can't actually think I've ever had a complaint. I've had a lot of praise and are you going to bring out another one, etc., etc. I can't think of any major suggestions to improve them either. That's not being conceded, that's just a fact.
Sure.
Because when it's complete and goes out there, I like to think it's been tested and put right and it does what it's supposed to do. Swimming, athletics, the golf, tennis, anybody playing them will feel that they're playing the game. That's pretty much all you can ask for.
Sure. And what is that testing process to you, going back to sample size, and how long does it take you to get a particular game or sport dialed in?
The game, if it comes into my head, the actual game is probably dialed in as to how to do it in a matter of hours. But to get it from there to the point that it goes out the door can be weeks. It's not major changes, it's just little touches around the edges that need to be put right. And it won't go out the door unless I feel it's doing the game, playing the game. I don't have a testing panel. I've had in the past 2 or 3 people to give me feedback. I think I prefer my own feedback.
There you go. A singular vision can be very good.
Yeah, it's other people might look at it and think, well, I don't like that, but that's not the point. It's does it work? It's not necessarily what they want to do. Baseball and US football, no, I would never try and do those. Although I've enjoyed them, you guys over there know far better than me. But I think, the athletics, the international, the golf, yeah, they're British enough that I know what I'm looking at.
I'm looking at your tennis game, Grand Slam tennis, and you go back to 1974, 75, 76 World Team Tennis League, all-time greats, modern era all-time greats, 85 to 2016, 17, the 1900 classic season ratings, 1927, 1936. Do you have to get in a particular mindset to kind of go back and capture some of the spirit there? Is it all strictly a numbers situation? I mean, do you have to kind of account for the eras and styles of play?
A little bit, but most of it is the numbers. Because in those eras, by and large, one or two people stood out way beyond the rest, and it's a question then slot the rest together. I mean, even today that happens. Look at the men's, there's sort of two or three that have stood out for the last 10 years.
Sure.
I've got a vast library of tennis books here, which will give me every result way back. And I've got results off the internet for everything from about 74 forwards, which is even by surface. But dice will obviously always decide what happens.
Are you always doing a 2d6 style of games? Do you incorporate other variations, iterations?
These are all 2d6. Yes, I could use the others, but at the end of the day, it's still percentages. Same result. You get more results, it's true. But more results doesn't necessarily mean better. He didn't actually sort of ask me why the website's up there. And that was, as you say, from a long way back. And I decided that over the years, I got so much fun out of this hobby sport that I would set this up and put up there all the things you see so that others who don't know can go to that site and find a lot. Jamie Marshall ran Page for All Season website many years back. He was giving up and all of his stuff came over to me because he wanted to keep it out there. And that's on my site as well, which is how you'll find some which go back to the DOS days. I don't know whether anybody ever still takes them, but there you go. It's all there for them. But there's a massive amount, and I can't remember, there's a massive amount of terabytes of data held up there.
What's your kind of routine for maintaining it and updating it?
Maintaining and updating should be done more often, but again, with my full-time job and whatever, it doesn't always happen. I'll take an example. If people want to look at an action or baseball, it probably says Action Baseball 2014, but if they follow the link, they'll arrive at the right site and they'll still find what they're looking for. The same with all the UK ones.
Are all your games pretty much print and play, all PDF and ready to go once you order and download?
They were all print and play, but a few years back, the cost of shipping went through the roof, and then so many people were buying from America, and of course that was adding a lot of money on. I still get the occasional comment, but when we had to print them, it's still expensive. I said, not as expensive as shipping it. And the golf games in particular, they are heavy. Every one of the cards, every one of the holes, the 18 holes, is on heavyweight coloured card. The players' statistics are on cards. You can imagine shipping that lot across from UK to America. Still cheaper to print it over there.
Going back regarding the tennis game and kind of the era, more now where you've got maybe more folks kind of clustered together, even though you might still have those real mega standouts. But how do you differentiate when you've got more of a middle of folks to kind of card up, whether it's golfers, tennis, whatever? I mean, if you've got folks that are really performing.
The tennis isn't that much of a problem because of the way that they're rated. It's not stratomatic card style. It's groupings of players. The golf, okay, well, you're talking a Ryder Cup replay, you're talking about a limited number of golfers for every tournament. So you can get the stats and you can work them from that. So that is individual. I don't do stratomatic style 1600 cards. And the other games, volleyball, tennis, athletics, swimming, you don't need cards. All you need is their times. Everything is geared off the times. X number of turns, variances of times on each turn, you're going to get different results. So, no, if anybody said to me, I've got to do 1,600 cards a year, I'd say, here's the game, you get on with it. It's only me.
Yeah, for sure. Who are some of your sports heroes?
Well, my team, first of all, which is Tottenham Hotspur, individually, probably less. At various times, there would have been various heroes in particular sports, but not long term. I mean, I mentioned to you, I supported Washington Redskins, now New York, New Jersey, New England. I mean, that can change. But Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, no. 1959 I started, and I'm still going.
Nice.
And I'm still hoping that they'll win the championship, but there you go. So, no, I mean, as regards heroes, for each sport, it would be a question of what the sport is, who's doing what. I would weigh it up on that.
Out of the Patriots teams, which do you have a particular favorite season?
The answer to that one would be their quarterback. Simply that he did very little wrong. And I like players, whatever sport, who can play and make very few mistakes, because at that level they've become perfection. There's some in the football, there's some in the cricket. Yeah, I mean, over the years I could pick individual teams, but to say they're heroes is not really fair.
Sure. Winding up here, thank you so much for your insights. And folks can go to sportsreplay.net and order John's games. The future of sports gaming, whether it's board or PC. Obviously, you've got Madden franchises, things like that, the real mega games out there. Just what's your take on what you think the industry can do or should do to maintain interest?
I think as we go forward, it's going to become less and less board games, computerized, Xbox type. It appeals. The younger generation don't really want to get out dice and cards and whatever. A few will. And that's the ones I hope will take an interest. But regrettably, we're going modern. I mean, back at the start, 1980s, when I got involved in the Spectrum programming, there was a growing number of people getting interested in the cards and dice. I don't really see how board and dice or card and dice are going to get people back. Maybe if I can come up with the idea of how you can create a role-playing game and you can be that person, and then you get into the game and create your career, maybe that would do it.
We will stay tuned. Thank you so much again, John Gardiner, our friend in the UK. Thank you so much, sir, for all you've done documenting these games and the games you've created.
It's a pleasure. The only final comment I would make is, and people in America, don't forget we're over here. Not just me, but the UK companies. They produce a great range of sports games as well.
Great point. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Jeff.